but I notice it has one theme, and that's get out of the way. Sometimes it's nice to use a technique to get out of the way, but often the less technique you can have and the more you can get out of the way, the more you're gonna progress. Hey my friends, so this video is about how to progress spiritually. And I want to start with a quote that I've heard from Angelo Dilulo in regards to retreats and meditation that you do. There's 2 rules of surgery. Sit still and don't try to be the surgeon. And that's very applicable to what we're going to talk about today, is like how to progress spiritually. Because we're here, right? We're here. And we have the idea we want to go there. To holiness. I don't know what's your name. But you as a holy, enlightened being. Whole, which you are already. But we have the idea that we want to progress in this way. And that we should do things, meditation, self-inquiry, I don't know, circling. We could do TRE, we could do therapy, we could do yoga or breath work, or we could read ourselves silly, we could YouTube ourselves silly. And then at some point we get there. And I mean, these things are great. But when we actually start to really progress fast is when we realize that these techniques, although great, are not going to do it for us. Because we can't do it. That's a big insight. If I see this with my clients, I know, bam, they're getting there. Because we can't do it. You can't dissolve the ego from ego. It's an Einstein quote where he said, you can't solve a problem at the level of which it was created. And that makes total sense when it comes to spirituality. Because this is not how it goes. You can meditate for 20 years and focus, and I'm just doing my practice right. And especially people have this, if you want a setup for a long time suffering without any awakening, just do one technique, even though it doesn't really work for you, and just do it a long time and don't integrate it in your life. So we want to do, when it comes to techniques, we want to use different techniques and see what really works for us, which helps us progress towards what we're going to talk about now. Because what do we progress to? We progress to, we can't do it. To, or we could say, surrender. We progress to letting go. Letting be is even better. Letting be. How does that work? Holiness is not there. The drop of the self or enlightenment is not there. And this is not coming from somebody that has the idea, like you see with a lot of videos online, that has the idea, no, I've actually been there. I've actually realized those things I want to realize. Which a lot of books write about. Not saying that to brag, but just saying that so you understand that I've actually gone to the place or am at the place where I actually wanted to go with this. Okay, so because a lot of people talk on the internet, and I think a lot of it is amazing, but some of it is just plain wrong. So yeah, here we go. So at some point you progress to I can't do it. That's even better. I can do it. Because there is no I. So I can do it. So I can just let it be. And what happens is that instead of this linear path that had the idea that there's somebody here that's not okay, that wants to go to somewhere where they're okay, or even fantastic, right? Well, I don't know if you've seen my Deconstructing the Now video, but everything's already here, right? It's unlimited potential. So this not okay is not true. We are already okay. So we could say enlightenment is here. It's kind of like a cork that you push down, right, in the water, and you let go, then it automatically surges up. Another quote I like: if you want to clear out muddy water, you don't want to stir, right? You don't want to use your teaspoon to start stirring, but you actually want to let it be, and then it sorts itself out. So in this case, we go from okay to an understanding that we're okay, and we're going to let the universe or source or God or whatever do this for us. How do we do that? That's by realizing that you can't do it. Again, a big realization. But then what happens is that we can, through just sitting and allowing whatever wants to come, we're not going to technique our way there, but we're just going to sit still, and don't be the surgeon, right? We're going to meditate, but not as a technique, but we're just going to sit. We're going to live our lives normally, but we're not gonna, for the first time, we're not gonna force ourselves to do anything. Because before we were doing this, exactly this, but we're doing that materially. And then often people get sick of that, or they realize something else, and they start to do this spiritually. Spiritual seeking, or spiritual ego, or, it's kind of like, it's another forcefulness. So when we stop with this forcefulness, but we start to relax, we start to let be, we start to let our own mind recover and deconstruct itself, then, and of course we can use techniques here, that's okay, but we're not using the technique. The technique is sort of happening naturally. We're in this allowance. And we're allowing this to happen. So we're taking time in our day, maybe, to just sit and allow it to process itself. So every time I made huge strides spiritually, it was because I was not doing it. Because it was a difficult time and I surrendered, for example, to whatever wanted to happen. Or because I sat down and I stopped doing certain techniques, or stopped looking for me being the surgeon myself, wanting to solve everything. But I just started to be with what is. Asking the question, what is here? Or basically doing that without any question, just sitting and allowing that which comes up naturally. And of course, it's nice to have a basis of techniques and different things to start. But then at some point, when we have this realization that more books won't help, more videos won't help, we start to see that only we can do this. Right? Not us as the person, but let's say we don't need a lot of external techniques or external help, but it does itself. That's where the real magic happens, and your big spiritual progressions can start to really happen for you. So you are already okay. Everything is already here. And let the forms that are here within the formulas, let them change themselves by losing resistance to what is and just being with what is. And if resistance is here, that's also fine. You just watch that, you just allow that. Okay, you could say, well, then I'm not going to do any techniques anymore, and I'm just going to live my life. And for some people that might be very healthy to hear after years of spiritual grind. But for most people, that would also not work. So, okay, what do you do then? Well, if you've materially been on the rat race, and you were then spiritually on the rat race, and you say, okay, the spirituality stuff, I only gonna progress if I'm letting go. So I don't need to do this spiritually, so I'm just going to go back to material striving. That also doesn't work. So this only works if we let go of striving. We let go of needing to do anything here. We let go of the mind needing to become in control. And we do that bit by bit. Doesn't happen overnight. It can happen overnight, but it tends to be a process where we build more trust, more surrender, more relaxation, more being over time. And if we've been seeking hardcore, then we can, and we have very clear recognition that we can do it, and we just bring the space, we hold the space for it to do itself. That's how I actually see the most effective meditation, is that you hold space, or you do what is necessary to hold space. Sometimes that's a little technique to keep your mind busy, but you hold space for healing to naturally happen. When you went on a long run and you just sit down on the couch and you take a rest day, then you're recovered. And it's similar with the mind. But we've been on such a grind with the mind that if we bring in space for everything to just be, it will start to clean its own mess. We don't have to clean its mess. We don't have to control that. We can just let that happen. So what does work is creating time and space for it to clean itself out. That works. And I would call that meditation. But it's not meditation per se, because you're not doing anything. You're just sitting down, maybe with eyes closed, maybe with eyes open. And hopefully you're bringing that a little bit to your day as well, where you're not trying to force yourself to do a lot of things, but you're just allowing these things to happen. And that's how I live my life for over 10 years, is just to allow things to happen. And the more I've allowed that, at the beginning it was, harder with work or with other things, but over time I was able to allow even work and things like that. And the more I was able to allow or sit with, and especially not use too much spiritual technique, but just hold the space for it to clear itself out, that's where progression really happens. So it's not for everybody, but this is my advice, and this is my idea of what helps for people. So take it as you want. For different people, different things work. But I notice it has one theme, and that's get out of the way. Sometimes it's nice to use a technique to get out of the way. But often the less technique you can have and the more you can get out of the way, the more you're going to progress. That's my experience with me and my clients. Much love. Bye.